Beyond the Barracks, and it is Monday once again, and we are at Over the Horizon Brewing. That's where we always are on Monday. Beyond the Barracks is presented by Cutwater Spirits, and we're thrilled to be here at Over the Horizon Brewing as we are every Monday. I'm Brian Giffen, the voice of the Citadel. Coach Maurice Drayton is to my immediate right, and obviously, it's a tough Saturday to look back on because you had so many opportunities.
Yeah, it is a game that got away, but first and foremost, it is just that, a game.
Right.
Our heartfelt sympathy, and I was on the phone with their coach Trey, and I told him, hey man, this game, don't worry about this game.
Right.
We'll figure this thing out. You guys just get here safe, be careful, and we'll just go from there.
Honestly, yeah, and you're reminded as much as, and look, football is a big deal. It is important to people, but these kinds of things remind you of exactly what you just said. It is a game, and there are much larger things in life. And man, over that weekend, how could you not be distracted?
Oh, absolutely, and it was just that, but it was also an opportunity. I put myself in his shoes. If it was my team that was stranded, it's an opportunity to galvanize, to circle the wagons,
right,
to come together, to get to know one another, even closer, to complete that bond, and I believe that's what they did, and it made it a little extra tough to try to come away with a victory.
When you look at it, and I'd love to get some insight from you, because there was obviously considerable coordination here when this comes about this way, and you have a 2 o'clock game on Saturday, and they left at whatever it was, 10:30 in the morning on Friday to come down here, and obviously fairly early in the day Friday, you guys would have known something about the fact that they were going to have trouble getting here, but there's a considerable amount of coordination in moving a game from 2 o'clock ultimately to 5 o'clock, but while you're trying to figure all that out, you don't know when they're going to get here. You don't, so walk us through a little bit of how that went down.
Well, there's a lot of moving parts, and there's brass above my head.
Right.
That pretty much, I'm an Indian. They just tell us when and where we're going to play, and it's my job to get the team ready to play at that time. We also had a ring ceremony this weekend, and that's a big day for Citadel seniors when they get that band of gold. So we were dealing with that as well, in addition to all the parents coming to see their loved ones.
There were, as we look at this game now, 34-17 loss, a game I think that most that saw it would agree was generally closer than a 17-point ball game. That's one that's 13-10 when you're going to the fourth quarter, and there's a span in there, 7-8 minutes, whatever it was left to go in the game, where you've turned them over, you've got the football, you're in the red zone, and you're down 13-10. But not scoring there kind of puts you in a position where then they made a couple of plays on you late, and ultimately they stretch it out and they win 34-17. But you have to at least be pleased with the fact that you fought tooth and nail now with two really good football teams in the conference, and while you're not pleased with coming away from that 0-2, there's a lot of promise ahead, and the team's playing hard and they're playing well together.
Yeah, all that is true, but playing close and losing is
right,
like kissing your sister. Nobody wants to do that.
Right.
So in our thought process, I keep going back to that 4th and 1 where we had to make a critical decision. Are we going to go for it? Are we going to kick a field goal? What are we going to do? And I made my mind up during the drive that we had to reach a certain landmark before we would actually go for it on 4th down, before it became a quattro scenario for us. So we knew we were going to kick that field goal. But truth of the matter is this, and I told a group earlier today, everybody wants to look at the kicker and blame the kicker.
Right.
He actually slipped. Our timing from snap to hold to kick needs to be anywhere from 125 to 128. And if so, with his elevation and flight path, you should not be able to block it. But when he slipped, the trajectory of the ball comes out lower, and their man was able to get his hand on the ball.
It's a funny thing nowadays where you see him in the NFL and this and that, guy's hitting 66, 65. I mean, that whole process, though, with a field goal, man, the longer, that's a tough thing to do. There's a lot of synchronization there between getting the snap right, getting the spot, getting the laces in the right direction, the whole 9 yards.
Absolutely. I tell you, to be a very good football player, you have to have done well in geometry,
right,
because it's angles. Everything we do deals with angles. So we look for smart guys.
your defense gave up some plays late in the game. They did have a couple explosives during the game, but you got off to a great start. Low-scoring game. I think it was 3-0, 6-3, whatever it was at the half. And you kind of got a lot of what you wanted early in the game, defensively in particular.
We did. Defensively in particular, we started fast, and that's what we wanted to do. Just if I can give a few stats, defensively from last year through 5 games to this year through 5 games, we have 11 sacks now. Last year we only had 3 sacks this time. We have 5 forced fumbles now. Last year was 2. We have 30 tackles for loss. Last year it was only 14. And this year we have 12 takeaways, and last year it was 6. So we are getting better like you talked about, but we have to capitalize on some of these turnovers and score ourselves on defense.
You know, the other thing that, frankly, they did pretty well, and I think particularly in the second half, they repeatedly got themselves behind the sticks between the tackles for loss, penalties, stuff like that, self-inflicted wounds of their own, but they navigated their way out of it a number of times too.
Yeah, they did, and that's the thing we are concentrating on this week, explosives, defensively protecting their explosive plays, coming up with schemes that we can utilize that would limit that, where you almost bend but you don't break before the first down marker. And then offensively, we have to manufacture more explosives that score. We have 27 explosives on the year, but only 3 of them are passing touchdowns. And I'm not picking on Tyler Cherry, but we had that pass early on in the game. We threw the Tyler. If we were able to make a guy miss, a little more explosive and get in the end zone, we have 7 points. But instead, we have to kick a field goal that's only 3-0.
Right. You know, he's one of those, and of course you have a new signal caller and a guy that can distribute the ball, but he's one of your receivers as a group. And I think especially here as we've gotten into SoCon play, the vertical game has come into play more because these teams are a little bit tougher to run on. But you've also got receivers who really didn't have to catch the ball that much in the past until starting last year, and a lot of these guys are coming around and they're finding their range.
Well, truth of the matter is they couldn't catch last year. You should
have saw that.
You should have saw the forward pass, the first forward pass we threw last year. Oh my goodness, it was ugly. But you know, these guys have worked hard, to their credit, and they're doing a fine job with it. I know you said a new signal caller. We have 2 signal callers,
right?
Patrick Covington and Lamar Owens. Both of these guys together have developed this offense that we're running now. And let me tell you something. What's better than 1 but 2?
Right.
And, I feel really good about the direction of the offense, what we're doing, and we're excited about it.
Well, and in this case, I was referring a little bit more to JB just because you've got a guy back there that might be in a little bit better position a lot of times to get the ball down the field based on, you know, how a defense is playing and things like that. But all in all, a 34-17 loss. It is one of those that you have to move on from. You know, the 24-hour rule applies both ways. And the one thing that's in the SoCon, man, it does not get any easier. It's tough week after week after week.
It doesn't get any easier. There's so much parity in the SoCon, but at the same time, it just means we have the opportunity to win. We've stood toe-to-toe with the best in the SoCon right now, and we're looking forward to a very, very challenging opponent coming into our house, a hungry opponent, an opponent that knows how to win.
We got a great show for you tonight. We're going to have some fun. It's just a bunch of us sitting around over the Horizon Brewing talking ball. How does it get any better than that on a Monday, right? Here in a little bit, you mentioned Patrick Covington. He'll be up here after a while. Everett Sands, the running back coach in the house. Now, did Keith make it over too?
No, Keith won't be here today. We figured we would have 1 Furman grad, 1 Citadel grad.
Right.
Maybe we can get them in front of the camera and have a board drill or something.
Right. And we'll talk about this upcoming game as Furman, boy, an arch rival, comes in here next weekend. They look a lot different too, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but that's one of those rivalry games that there's, I think, an added level of juice on both sides for, just because of how it goes back, huh?
Absolutely. When you think of the Furman graduate, it's reminiscent of the Citadel graduate in the state of South Carolina, because we are CEOs of companies.
Right.
We are the heads of businesses. We are policemen. We are law enforcement officers. Excuse me, it's the same thing. we're at the top of the profession, at
Right.
the hierarchy in this state. So you want to have those bragging rights against those guys that you work with on a daily basis.
It's funny how deep that rivalry is, and obviously, I'm a year into learning all this stuff, but so we have some challenges with, where we allocate booth space because multimedia has grown,
Yes.
and obviously, there are more people doing broadcast functions, this and that at games. And I was joking with Lee Glaze last week that, next week when Furman comes in, we kind of have an alternate place that we put visiting radio, and I was joking with Lee saying, maybe because Dan Scott up there is a good friend, this and that, maybe we'd try to figure out some extra. He goes, no, we're not doing any extra to accommodate Furman.
And I owe Lee.
And Lee left in 1986, by the way.
It never leaves you.
Right.
I owe Lee an apology. Lee catches me at the worst time. He catches me at the end of the game or at the half after something happens, and he'll ask me a question, and
Heat of the moment.
Yeah, the heat of the moment. So, Lee, I apologize, but you're a Citadel brother. You're used to it.
Right, and the one thing I can tell you is that Lee is listening tonight. Here's a little bit of a sneak preview for you. Lee Glaze will actually be here, I think, next week to host this show because, unfortunately, I had a death in the family, and I will likely be in Arizona next week. But for that reason, Lee's listening, so I know you got to him with all this. Hey, Lee, you hear that? But so it's the Bulldogs and Furman coming up this week. It's a 2 o'clock game, we hope, with a 1 o'clock pregame for us at Johnson Haygood. And obviously, we'll get into that game a little bit more. But like I said a little bit ago, I looked at this schedule as you go along, and there's not a hole in it. If you're not ready to go every single week and go out there and play a clean game, somebody's going to pluck you.
Absolutely correct. You're right.
And that's just the way this shapes up. So they take on Furman. Then they travel to Western Carolina. And you've really got the way the schedule shook out this year, you have a lot of home games, but you get a lot of them in early. So you have a lot of road contests as the season winds on, too. We're not even halfway through this thing yet, a long way to go.
Yeah, but to the point I was making earlier, I actually like road games better because a lot of times our players don't have to worry about tickets. They're not worried about who's coming to the game. They're not worried about sweet thing. It's an opportunity for us to just surround each other, be in the hotel together. The thing at the Citadel, because of our class system, our upperclassmen don't get a chance to hang out in a non-football setting with their teammates.
Right.
This is the time that we get to be with our teammates, to break bread together and to join at the hip.
When I was at Kennesaw State, Brian Bohannon always said I love road games because he felt like he had his team's attention more, and there was more attention to detail on the football part, i.e. minimize distractions and outside influence.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and for that reason, he preferred the road games, and it's kind of one of those things. But honestly, I've always enjoyed the travel aspects of it too, just because, and it's all part of the journey every year when you have the privilege of getting to do this.
That's right.
How do you feel about how the game came together offensively? You didn't get off to as good a start as you wanted to, but you guys were able to make plays down the field. You were able to pick up some key first downs, got off to a bit of a slow start, but it's okay to do that when your defense is pitching a shutout for the most part too.
Yeah, well, if you look at our previous 2 contests prior to this, we were 3 and out. So the fact that we were able to get down the field and get points, in our minds, we considered that as a fast start. Right. And that was one of our goals. Start fast, win the middle 8. The middle 8 is the last 4 minutes of the second quarter, the first 4 minutes of the third. And we felt like we'd done that. The part we didn't do was finish.
The irony with ETSU, too, and that middle 8 thing's been all over football this year. A lot of people making that point. But the thing where ETSU had a real strength is the first 4 of each half, where they really got off to fast starts. You contained them in those 2 periods of the game where they're really kind of at their best. But again, every game has a winner and a loser, and it's generally who either makes one more play or one less mistake in a close game.
Yeah.
We are live at Over the Horizon Brewing. We're talking Citadel football, and of course we've got a lot of folks here to talk Citadel football with. I'm Brian Giffen with Maurice Drayton. Coming up next, we'll bring Everett Sands up here, and we'll talk a little bit about the Bulldogs' deep running back group, which has been a very good group so far, and a big part of why the Dogs sit at 2-2 and have given themselves a chance in all the, or 2-3, I should say, and then have given themselves a chance though in all these games. We'll get into that with Everett here in a little bit. Everett's like you, another of those Citadel long-time guys. So we're going to gang up a little bit on Cub after a while.
I promise Coach Cove I'll be nice to him tonight.
Right. Yeah, last week when we had Zane Vance up here saying, oh, ATSU guy, man, here we go. But
Yes.
that's all part of the fun of it.
Oh, it is part of the fun, definitely.
In this business too, and I've run into this so much with coaches and football ops types that look, it's a big fraternity. There's all kinds of people here and there that you've worked with one place or the other. It's kind of the nature of the gig sometimes.
It is. Patrick and I actually met in 2010. We worked together at Coastal Carolina, and we hit it off from the very beginning. We had a foxhole deal that he and I had to get in together to fight for something, and we became close ever since.
Well, we are talking Citadel football here at Over the Horizon Brewing. Right here, we'll step aside and take a timeout. On the other side, Everett Sands will join us, and we'll talk a little bit about that running back group, and we'll talk some more football. That comes your way next. By the way, Beyond the Barracks is presented by Cutwater Spirits, Brian Giffen, Coach Drayton, and we're back with more of it right after this on the Citadel Bulldogs Radio Network. Horizon Brewing. It is Monday, and it's Beyond the Barracks. We do this every week, and we generally do it here every week. We talk Citadel football. Maurice Drayton, the head coach of the Dogs, is here. And, of course, we've got plenty of others, including one Everett Sands, not only a Citadel royalty to whatever extent, but also the running backs coach with the Dogs. And you've got a pretty good group of guys this year. You've got some depth at that position, too, which is a real blessing in the times that we're in.
It is. And we got 4 guys that bring a little bit something different to the table, but both of them are all real good in their own right.
Yeah, it's been an interesting transition, the last couple of years. And everybody knows, how the game has changed from the standpoint of all of those that generally lived with that triple over the years where, they changed the blocking rules and things like that. So a lot of us, and I say us, what programs were living on that over the years have had to adapt to it. Now you guys are in year 2 of doing so, and obviously your offense looks a lot more fluid now because these guys are kind of getting acclimated to this new scheme. They fit into it, but they've had a whole year, to thrive in it too. What are your thoughts on that progression?
I think it is very difficult at times to go from just running triple
right
to all of a sudden now they got to be a little bit more cognizant of pass defense and blitzes and things of that sort. So it did take a little bit of time, but I think our guys are adjusting well.
This group that you've got has really been an effective group so far. It appears anyway. You guys have, to whatever degree, I don't want to say settled, but you've gone to Garrison in a lot of real short yardage situations, and he's been effective. Of course, JB can run it himself to whatever extent. Everybody kind of knows what Cooper is, a guy with great speed, and the fresher you keep him, which this should enable you to do, he's a really dangerous guy. Then you look at Johnny, who's an explosive player too. Javante, who's another guy that you've used in a lot of different roles, but that's another guy that really can get in that backfield and run the ball.
Yeah, JGB as we call him,
right,
is definitely one of our most explosive players, and he's a guy that we want to find different ways to get him the ball. But one guy that you didn't mention, Corey Ibrahim.
Yeah, I hadn't gotten there yet.
Yeah, but he's another one that's in the mix heavily, and they as I said before, they bring something a little bit different. Now Garrison is the biggest of the group,
right.
And when we need to get some things rolling short yardage-wise, he's definitely the guy that would lean on.
When you guys, and by the way, Lee's listening up in Sumter at home. He's doing his homework because he's going to be here doing this next week. But when you guys design some of these things, try to get this lined up here. But when you guys design some of these things and the way that you call plays, and do you have specific things that fit specific guys' strengths, or do all of those guys essentially fit what you've got in your playbook? In other words, are you more likely to run one thing with Cooper in the game as opposed to you get where I'm going with this?
Yeah. Now we believe everybody can do everything, but at the same time, some of those guys do some things a little bit better. So some things we're going to have earmarked where we would rather have this guy versus that guy in the game at that particular time. But all of them are capable of doing everything, but some of them just do some things a little bit better.
Right. Well, the Bulldogs take on Furman this week. That is a 2 o'clock kickoff, we hope, after what happened this last weekend. And the Paladins are a longtime rival. Obviously, that's another one that you'll know a whole lot and have really good memories, in your head-to-head meetings with Furman. It's funny because you were telling me a little bit ago, somebody out there in the crowd asked you if you're a Furman guy. That would make you cringe a little, didn't it?
Yeah, I could not imagine. They said, "Are you a Furman grad?" I was like, "Me? A Furman grad? Nah, that is definitely nothing I want to be."
I think that's one of the great things about college football are the rivalries. And at this level and in this part of the country, this is a really, really good one, and it has been for a long time.
Yeah, we've been playing since 1913. And actually, there was only 4 Division I schools in the state at the time. So it was Clemson and USC. And then you had the Citadel and Furman. So, of course, Clemson and USC was that natural rivalry, and the Citadel and Furman was a natural rivalry. And it's been a rivalry we've played, if I remember correctly, every year that both teams were playing since 1919.
Wow.
So it's been a long time that the Citadel and Furman guys have been going at it. But the thing that makes this rivalry also special is it's not just during school, but after you get out and you start going for jobs,
right,
that rivalry is still going.
you're competing against those guys now for gigs out there in adult life too. What are some of the memories that come back for you from your playing days, coaching days too? Because you've been at the Citadel now on multiple occasions in a coaching role. What are some of your great memories in these head-to-heads with Furman over the years?
Well, first of all, I want to say, as a player, I'm 3-1 against Furman.
Right. Okay.
But the probably the most important one is in 1992, we had an opportunity to go to Furman. It was the last game of the regular season. And if we win this game, we win the conference outright. Now, we were in a position where we had one loss. So if we lost, we would have still got a share of the conference.
Right.
But we had a chance to win it outright up there. And so it was definitely bittersweet to go up there and win the conference outright.
So you're taking on an arch rival of sorts, and it's for everything. And even if you had a share of it, that's not the way you want to go when you're going against an arch and on their field.
Exactly.
You want to celebrate on their field, right?
Yes, definitely.
Well, obviously, this game that we come off of, Coach and I were talking about this a little bit ago. This is one of those that I think is even more disappointing because you think about opportunities you guys had. And look, I mean, everybody knows every week, look, whoever you take on, they got a lot of time. This is a tough thing. Winning is hard.
It is.
And, it's going to come down to who makes one or two more plays or one or two more mistakes. And that really was the difference in this one.
Definitely. Normally we talk about all the time in the offensive room that there's usually 5 plays in a game.
Right.
That's going to decide the outcome. Now, the issue is you don't know what 5 plays those are.
Right.
So you have to play every play like that's the one that's going to make the difference.
Right. I think one of the things that really comes back to is it's always easy to look back at missed opportunities, but it's one of those where you get it into the red area, you've really got to get something out of it just because of how close these games typically are going to be.
Definitely. The red zone is an extremely important statistic for us, and we believe once we get it into the red zone, we need to get touchdowns.
I'd love for you to get your thoughts on just the intangible that confidence is. I mean, the one thing this team has shown through these 2 SoCon games is they're going to be able to play with these SoCon teams this year, and that's a step forward. Last year was tough. I mean, it was a transitional year for you guys. Everybody was new, all that stuff, and it was a tough year. And a lot of those games didn't feel competitive. Later in the year, they felt more so. But this has been a toe-to-toe thing with 2 really good football teams in the conference where you've had a chance to win them both.
No doubt about it. And confidence is extremely important.
Right.
Because if I have confidence when it gets down to that close time in the game, then we know that we have a chance to win. And that is something that we're continually working on our guys to make sure that they have that confidence. And the thing is, confidence is something that's earned.
Right.
So we have to put the work in, and our guys have been doing that, to put the work in to know that, hey, when it comes my opportunity, I have what it takes to make it happen.
We're hanging out with Everett Sands at the moment, the running backs coach at the Citadel. This is Beyond the Barracks. It is Monday night, and we're at Over the Horizon Brewing. It's presented by Cutwater Spirits, and we're talking about Citadel football, who comes off this loss against East Tennessee State and prepares for arch rival Furman. That game is Saturday. It is a 2 o'clock game, and we'll have pregame coverage on the radio at 1 o'clock. But going to be another big crowd. It's going to be a festive day. It's going to be fun out there. I look back at some of the stops that you've made from the time that you played here at the Citadel. You've made a number of stops here along the way in your career.
I have.
And you always keep coming home, huh?
Somehow I end up coming back home, so it's definitely a special place for me.
It's an interesting dynamic, in this business. I know you'll be able to relate. You've made so many stops. I mean, this business is kind of a big fraternity. There's guys that'll be on other coaching staffs and people you'll see along the way that you've worked with somewhere at some point in the past. Right. I think there's more of that maybe than people even realize.
Oh, definitely. So, for instance, last week, the offensive coordinator at ETSU, his father and I worked together at University of Texas San Antonio.
Yeah. Now, were you there when they started the UTSA program?
No, sir. I was there with the second staff.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of those, too, that what have they had football now, 10, 12, 15 years?
Yeah, probably about 12.
Yeah, but they're another one, though, that has come along and is a climbing and a pretty decent, FBS program. But some of these other stops along the way, you were at Coastal. Now, were you there in the Moglia era or just before it?
Right after it.
Okay.
So when Moglia stepped down.
Right, you were there with Jamie then.
And Jamie stepped in, I was with him.
Yeah.
And I was with Coach Cove as well. So Coach Cove was there.
I got to see that group a little bit back in 2015, and that was when their last year in the Big South, where they won the Big South, and then, of course, moved on the year after that. But yeah, definitely been to Conway and seen the Chanticleers a little bit. And there's a real tie, though, and I guess geographically as much as there's a real tie, though, between programs as much as, guys that have been there that are here and things like that. Pretty normal for this part of the country.
Definitely, which, of course, Coach Drayton was there at one point. And actually,
you talked about Cove being there.
Yep, Coach Cove was there, and Coach Bennett actually tried to hire me there 3 times, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah, it's got to be about the logistics sometimes. Well, appreciate you coming up and hanging out with us. Obviously, we look forward to. We got 7 more of these. Let's see if we can go win a few of these and start this week.
Wait, let's go win a lot of them.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. 6 or 7 of them would be good.
That would be great.
All right, Everett, thanks so much. Lee Glaze is sending me texts and stuff, and he'll be here next week. But great to have you up here, and obviously it's always great to talk Citadel football. We're going to bring the former Furman guy up here next. Any parting gestures?
Hey.
I'll tell you what, too, I've got an extra headset right there in case anybody that wants to come up and get into a smack fest with it. No, it's all in fun.
We might have to do that.
Yeah. Well, heck, hang out then. We're going to take a commercial timeout right here. I'm Brian Giffen. I'm with Everett Sands. Maurice Drayton in the house, too, over there dining at the moment. Patrick Covington will come up and hang out with us next. And we're talking Citadel football tonight. And we're back with more of it right after this. You're listening to the Citadel Bulldogs Radio Network. Yeah, Joe, I saw. Brian Giffen, and Coach Drayton in the building also. And this is Beyond the Barracks. It's Monday night. Our guest now is Bulldogs offensive line coach and co-offensive coordinator Patrick Covington. And Coach, it's good to see you. I've told you about this a couple of times when we're over there doing pregame pieces and this and that. I'll get you out there one week, and here you are.
That's right. Yeah, we got to come out of the office. Is a nice little break on a Monday.
Obviously, you guys come off of what was a tough result, but a game that you fought hard in. You stood toe-to-toe for the most part, and as we were talking about during the commercial break a few minutes ago, unfortunately, it kind of got away the last 7-8 minutes, 5-6 minutes of the game in reality.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, the reality is we had plenty of chances to be a little more decisive during the game and make something happen. And especially on our side of the ball, you got to take advantage of every opportunity.
Right.
As far as controlling what you can control and making sure you're not taking the game out of your own hands. And defense gave us plenty of opportunities, especially there early on, to kind of jump ahead of them, and
right.
We just didn't execute at the highest rate.
And you guys always talk about it. It's common sense that you're going to take what the defense is going to give you, and they did give you the opportunities. You just got to cash them in. But you also created, as a team, 4 takeaways. You'll take that, and I think you won that margin by 2, but you'd love to win it by 4 too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think our deal for the rest of the year and every week is we got to eliminate any turnovers.
Right.
Absolutely. And you're exactly right. When the defense goes out and has 4 takeaways there, like they did, and you want to keep that thing as positive as can as a team, and it's a momentum swing as well, right? And that's a big part of it. And when good things happen on our sideline on either side of the ball, you feel that rush of energy in the group. And I'd be lying if I say that didn't have an effect on our guys, and they kept fighting. But you love it when those things go well and you feel that energy surge.
So you were here last year too, and obviously this is the second year of this offense, and I'm sure it's morphed to what this year's personnel fits best too, with the addition of JB, and now you've got this depth at running back. But how would you assess the progress these guys have made offensively? And again, a lot of them are playing that were here a year ago. Your line's kind of held their own for the most part. Yeah, you've given up a sack here or there, but by and large, your line has kind of held their own, and it's been pretty tough so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're getting closer, I think is the best way to describe it. We're getting a lot closer, playing cleaner football. We got to continue to make sure we're doing what our guys do well as coaches, and focusing on the things that we know they can execute at a high rate, and take advantage of the matchups we do have. Getting our playmakers in space where they can make big plays, and we've had some explosive plays. We've made a lot of progress there, and like Coach Drayton has mentioned, Coach Owens has mentioned, as far as now we got to take advantage of those big explosives. Now we got to get them in the end zone at a higher rate, as opposed to just being an explosive where we don't finish. So
because they're not the glamour positions, the O linemen and this and that, the average fan may not understand how much technique there is between footwork and technique that there is in being a really good, effective offensive lineman.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like being a long snapper a little bit. Like you want to be consistent. You don't want to be an up and down player.
Right.
I mean, obviously everybody loves the pancake blocks and seeing somebody get knocked down, those things, and we want those at a high rate as well. But it's also about staying covered up on people and just working together as a unit. I think that's probably one of the biggest themes for us continuing offensively, besides holding on to the football, is just continuing to work together with all 11, and all those guys doing their 1/11th at a higher rate, at a more consistent rate. And then we'll see these things that we're talking about. We'll see some of these explosive finish in the end zone. We'll see sustained drives and starting a lot faster.
Well, you guys have rotated to more bodies in that front than a lot of teams do, and you get a lot of guys game experience, so that if somebody does get nicked up or gets a little run down, you've got some interchangeability there.
That's right. And the best guys are going to play in our program. So if there's not a big drastic drop off between one or the other, we want to roll as many as we can and develop that depth like you're talking about. It's just a huge advantage for the long haul. It's a huge advantage just from an experience standpoint, especially for some of those young guys. We have some really talented young players in this program, in that group as well. But there's no matter how you practice, those guys have to get their that opportunity in the game to really show what they can do and show that they can execute at a high rate. So been pleased with those guys. And, you hope to get to a point in the year where as a Division I football team where you've got, 7 to 8, 8 to 9 O-linemen you feel pretty good about that can roll through there and, and provide some depth.
So a good friend of mine is an O-line coach, and he's at the high school level now over in Georgia, but he had a great word for this. He said he always wants a couple of guys that have some nastiness to them. Mm-hmm. A little bit of that go out there, a little bit of that predator on the field mentality, so to speak. And you have to be careful, of course, because you don't want penalties and things, but you like guys that have a little bit of that chip that want to go out there and road grade somebody.
Absolutely. You want all 120 on your team to be like that. You want all 20 of your guys up front to be like that. The reality is, like usually when you have a really good group, you've got about 4 or 5 that are just exactly what you're talking about. Like every rep they have, they're trying to finish somebody. And what happens is if you've got a good 3, 4, 5 of those guys, that spreads to the rest of the group. That becomes the standard. And we're close with a couple guys there. We've got some guys in that group that you have to kind of pull them back a little bit in practice. You got to pull them back a little bit in games. And it's a fine line too. Being able to understand the difference between hurting the team and finishing blocks, and we got a saying in the O-line room, we're always trying to make that defender quit. That's literally what we're doing. Not necessarily in a malicious way, but like how do we make them question, want to play and ball the next snap? And if we can accomplish that, then we feel like we're wearing down them as the game goes on.
I think one of the fun, it would seem like to most people in the role I'm in that you want to call 57-yard pass plays and stuff like that, but I've always loved games to where you get up on somebody in your mid-third quarter or something like that, and your O-line starts to impose its will a little bit, like you said, kind of make them want to quit. And I've seen it to where when it gets in sync and guys get going, they don't want to huddle up. They just want to keep running the ball and keep lining up. And I love when you have a group of guys that have that mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's all it is mentality. Is when you've got somebody on their heels a little bit, like you're talking about, you've beaten them up on a little bit. And I think we had, earlier in the year, you had some drives like that, especially in the Charleston Southern game at the end, where you saw everybody, all 11 guys, and the guys up front and the backs in the backfield working together. And it may not have been the prettiest play, but when you looked up and there was a pile of bodies there, you had 5 yards, you had 6 yards, you had 4 yards, and you're just chipping away at them.
And it was apparent to us broadcasting the games because of just the body language. When you see those D tackles standing out there with their hands on their hips, that you're starting to wear them down a little bit.
Absolutely.
And that's what was going on in that game. Well, so now we got to get to the Furman part. You knew we were going to go here. So you're a Furman alum, obviously, a Furman grad, and good-natured, of course, because your loyalty's wherever you work. But let's talk a little bit about your career and how much guff do they give you around the office? Good-naturedly, of course, on a week like this.
I think it's a year-round thing with Coach Sands,
right?
And
he's nearby, by the way, so he'd probably come back.
Yeah. I can see him now. He doesn't have many jokes though. He uses the same one-liners. He's got about 3 or 4 of them, and we got to kind of expand it a little bit more, right? But he's still working on it. We're gonna work on that a little bit more.
Yeah. So and I've got Lee Glaze has been sending me texts too. And he's got some lines about Furman. Obviously he's a Hall of Fame player here. He's got some lines about Furman he can't repeat. Purple makes him blank. But he says it might not be radio worthy, but he may pull it out at some point on Saturday. But there is a good-natured element there. But it also, Coach, has been a fierce rivalry for a long time and a really good one for a long time.
Absolutely. And we got Coach Sands pulling up the table. I don't know if he's got a hot mic or not. But
yeah, he does now.
I got a trivia question for Coach Sands. Okay, being a Hall of Famer he is, and I put him on the spot since he came over here.
I like this kind of stuff.
We got you, Coach Sands.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Coach Sands,
is this thing on?
Can you name the year and the location of the first matchup between the Bulldogs and the Paladins?
Well, the year was 1913.
Exactly right, 1913.
I can't tell you where.
Wow. I'm guessing it was in South Carolina. So.
I would imagine.
I was trying to weigh in, man.
It seems like it's a trick question.
No, it's not. It was in Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay.
Do you know the final score?
The Citadel won 14-7.
75-0.
Wow.
If our records are correct, 75-0 Bulldogs.
The Citadel. Well, hey, we need to repeat that again.
Exactly.
2024.
That's exactly why I'm bringing it up. So, for me, Brian, like ever since I started coaching, I swear we play Furman every year.
Right.
So, this is not a new thing. Here, though, what I've always loved, whether I was playing or coaching, but especially the Furman Citadel rival, is it was a, no pun intended, it was a dogfight every game. I remember my senior year, and I think some of these guys were on the sideline coaching, but I think it was 3 overtimes.
Right.
3 overtimes, and Furman ended up coming out on top at the very end. But I just remember that there's always a tremendous amount of respect on both sides, especially from our side, as far as we always knew it didn't matter what the records were of each team. It did not matter who the all-star players were. It was always a battle. It was always one of those old school knockdown dragouts, where it's going to end. There's going to be 3 yards in a cloud of dust every play. So I always loved that about it. And so hopefully the plan is, not hopefully, but it will be something closer to that 1913 game.
Exactly.
The 75-0.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
let's make it happen.
Honestly, man, I'd take 3-0, but those extra 72 would be okay too, though.
Hey.
Next trivia question, last one right here. How many times has the Citadel and Furman matched up overall? Not the record between, just overall matchups in football.
How many meetings?
I'm going to say it's about 102, 103.
He is on it, Coach. 103. 103, I believe it is. And if I'm wrong, don't bash me, but I believe that's correct. This will be number 104 coming up.
The other dynamic in this, of course, is when we go up there, probably more, but people you're connected to from your Furman days, they probably give you some guff about this too, now that you're coaching down here, right?
It's way worse than this coach right here. It's like unbelievable. So, but it's all in good fun. I think that when you think about 2 teams that have faced off 103 times throughout since 1913, does it get any better than that as far as college football goes? It really does. In the same state, right, and all the history between the 2 schools, it's really a special thing. And I'm really excited about, especially when you look at our conference and how it's changed over the years. Some of the stuff that's remained consistent is that rivalry. And so to continue on with that and be a part of it, whichever side you're on, is obviously a lot of fun.
So I was new to it last year, and obviously I've seen the ferociousness of the rivalry a little bit over the 1 year anyway. Now, does this rival what they call it in Georgia, the clean, old-fashioned hate thing between Georgia, or is it that? There's obviously a mutual respect level there, but I mean, that fierce a rivalry, okay, regardless, we can go 1 and whatever as long as that 1 is against. Boom. Is it that kind of rivalry?
I think for me it's even more important. I'm not going to speak much on that because I don't know much about it. I just know that if you bring this subject up to a Citadel alum or a Furman alum, right, those words you couldn't read off from Lee, some of those words are going to pop up. You know what I mean?
It's amazing how often that happens. This is Beyond the Barracks. We're talking Citadel football tonight as the Dogs get ready to take on Furman this Saturday. That's a 2 o'clock game at Johnson-Haygood. And we need you out there. If you can't make it out, though, we'll be on the air with pregame coverage at 1 o'clock. The aforementioned Lee Glaze, the Citadel Hall of Famer, will join me on the broadcast, and we'll tell you the story. But, hey, the best thing to do is come to the game and bring your radio with you. That's a really good way to expect. I'm a radio guy, man, so I'm a little biased. That's a great way to experience a sporting event. Guys, thanks so much for coming up and hanging out. We've got one more segment with Coach. We're going to set the scene for this game coming up. And obviously the Dogs look to get back on track.
Absolutely.
Try to get back and try to get that next rung on the ladder.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Back with more at Over the Horizon Brewing. After this, you're listening to the Citadel Bulldogs Radio Network. at Over the Horizon Brewing. It is Beyond the Barracks. It's Monday night, and backed by popular demand, Everett Sands and Patrick. Coach came up here and said, man, I'm having so much fun with this. I'm just going to sit here and watch you guys. So you guys get to help me size up this Furman game. Let's find a way to give these 2 tickets for that game away. I've got 2 tickets for the game. They're Section F, row 21. They're seats 9 and 10. They're really good seats, and we've got them for this game. We got 2 of them to give away. How did we decide we were going to do this?
Well, hey, how about let's go back to a very wonderful time in my career.
Okay.
As we went up to Furman in 1992 to win the Southern Conference.
Okay.
What was the score in the 1992 Citadel Furman game?
And they clinched the SoCon outright in this game.
Yes.
And that was obviously a great year. Okay. What was the score when the Dogs won the 1992 SoCon championship at Furman? That'll get you 2 tickets if you've got this answer, and come up here and let us know. Well, so obviously the level of rivalry speaks for itself. Furman's a little bit different animal this year, and I mean, they're one of those programs that is a lot like what you guys are working on and aspiring to be too. They develop a lot of players there that stay there a while. As it happens, this year their starting quarterback from last year, this was Tyler Huff, that played so well for them, transferred out in the portal and ended up at Jacksonville State, where he's playing pretty well. And they're a little bit of an unknown quantity to me because I haven't seen them, but I know you guys have been studying up on them. What are your impressions of Furman as we get ready to take them on?
I mean, I think you alluded to a little bit of it. They're playing some new guys out there. They still have some returners. We're mostly looking at the defensive side of the ball right now as we begin the week. But they had a lot of guys in the front 7 that played last year. They roll a lot of different guys in there. Some newer guys on the back half and the shell. But like we've talked about in these type games and these programs, these guys are going to be in the right spot the majority of the time. They're going to play hard. They're going to fly around to the football. And what you alluded to with both of our programs, in different ways, we're a developmental program. You're not going to see 20 or 30 transfers come in every year. They're rolling in and out. So that's another thing that makes this rivalry special, because you're seeing 2 programs where they're trying to develop student athletes still from the high school ranks to build a football team.
One thing what you're going to get with a Clay Hendricks coached football team too. Another guy that's been there, and they have a pretty definitive identity in the years that he's been there. And obviously they're the defending conference champion that went a couple of rounds in the playoffs and stood toe to toe with Montana too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they are a well coached team, and we know that they're going to try to bring it. They're going to come. They're going to be excited, and they're looking for an opportunity for themselves to get back on track.
Right.
And this is that game that it doesn't matter the record. Both teams are going to come out and play their hearts out.
Yeah, I haven't checked either. Did they get their game in yesterday? I know they had intended. The game had been postponed, and they were going to try to get it in yesterday with all the weather. Did they get it in?
No, so I don't.
So they're going to have a couple of weeks in between by the time you see them. And they opened the season, and really not a big shock that they went down to Mississippi and got beat up down there, and they got a check and headed out. But I think it surprised everybody that they struggled against Charleston Southern, and then more recently they've not been the same Furman they were last year, at least anyway. Yeah. Different group of kids every year to whatever extent, but they haven't been quite the same as they were last year, at least thus far.
Yeah, I think what you see is as you look at the 4 games they've played. Obviously that quarterback's a big deal, and they're playing a younger one,
right?
And so they're taking those lumps early here. But they play that first game versus Ole Miss, an extremely talented team, right? That second game, I believe they're playing against Charleston Southern, right? Committed some turnovers, went back and forth the entire game, but significantly outgained their opponent, but just didn't win the turnover battle. Made some crucial mistakes playing 2 different quarterbacks. So that inexperience there, I believe, is hurting. Then you look at the Stetson game; they're overmatched Stetson a little bit, and that game was over, by the second half. And then this William and Mary game against a very good opponent, very good William and Mary team. You see they're battling all the way through. You see a little bit more consistency out of them. You see kind of truly who they are. So I think they probably feel like even with everything they've been through in the last week, they probably still feel like they're trending up.
Right.
And they're gaining experience on the side of the ball where they're a little bit inexperienced. They're probably going to use the adversity they're having right now as a platform to kind of
rallying point. Sure.
Exactly right. So these things tend to bring teams closer together, and just like the adversity that we've been through as a program as well. And So we're excited to see what it's going to be like on Saturday and what type of atmosphere and just how the guys come out and play.
It's exciting. You have them at home. Obviously, the level of rivalry we've spoken about now for an hour, and everybody kind of knows how fierce a rivalry this is. It seems like a fast start for a number of reasons would really be in order. Maybe you can get them on their heels a little bit because they still are kind of seeking to find their footing a little bit. Yeah, they beat up on Stetson, but they've kind of struggled to find their footing at least a little bit so far, and a fast start, I think, would help you a lot.
Absolutely. I like what you're saying right now, right? We're going to speak this into existence, right? So that's what we want to all be about. We want to strike first, throw the first punch, but that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? It's just being consistent as a team, doing our 111th in whatever phase we're in, and that's been a huge thing for us as we continue to practice, continue to grow. But we want to speak that into existence,
right?
And it's a real thing.
Coach said. Go ahead.
A big part of starting fast because last week we scored first.
Right.
But we need to get in the paint. We need
Right.
to score touchdowns.
Well, and as Coach said, it was the defense that really kind of started fast. You'd love to get that, too, and be able to go down there and get on the board maybe even a couple of times and just see how the game shakes out. Guys, it's been great having you up here. Coach even just dispatched you guys to go ahead and hang out up here. He was enjoying being a fan. But obviously, best of luck Saturday, and we look forward to talking with you guys more as the week goes on. And obviously, it's a big game.
Absolutely, Brian. And Coach Sands has already promised off air that he's going to get a couple more firm jokes.
I was going to ask one last
thing. He's going to work on his repertoire.
I was going to ask one last. Are there ever any little unorthodox insider bets you guys do? Like somebody has to sing somebody's fight song or wear their colors. You guys ever get into any of that stuff?
You know what? That's that's a lose-lose situation for me in this situation. Yeah. But we probably should come up with something along the way, But I think both of us are not expecting a big win this Saturday and looking forward to watching the guys compete in this rivalry.
Dogs take on Furman. That is Saturday. It's a 2:00 kickoff as the Citadel looks to square their record at 3-3 and get back on the winning track and get that first SoCon win this year. Also, if you can't make it to the stadium, and I know it's going to be a near sellout if it's not already. By the way, we've got these 2 tickets here. What was the score of that game again? 1992. Come give it to us. But that'll about do it for us. I want to say thanks to Joe Mack, he in particular, because he helped us navigate a couple of technical challenges on the studio end. And thanks to everybody here at Over the Horizon. Man, you guys are great. Give yourselves a hand. Let's go. Let's go. That's more like it.
So we got a winner?
That's right. And before we sign off, I want to hear you collectively give me a Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
All right, that's cool. That'll work. That'll do it for us. We will talk to you Saturday, everybody. We are out.